All right. I'm thinking, should we go over let's go over the reading last, okay? The reading for the quiz on Tuesday. All right. Great. We finished with Socrates, and the other part of this is shorter, about his student Plato. But let's see if I can get this good. All right. So Plato not only records these dialogues of Socrates, we have that to thank. 347? Yes, 347. I don't need you to know these dates, just give you an idea where we are here. And you can also kind of see how close the Socrates and Plato are to the pre-Socratics in the big picture. They didn't live all that long after that era died out. But Plato becomes a philosopher in his own right and a very powerful thinker and writer, and he writes voluminously on his own topics. This is the way that scholars can look at a Socratic dialogue Plato wrote and see where Plato's speaking his own words, his own philosophy, using Socrates as his mouthpiece in these writings, but they can kind of dissect everything he's written from all these other writings that he did, and then find where those ideas are put into Socrates' speaking, so to speak. There's he has British American dual citizenship. Philosopher, not living anymore. His name's Alfred North Whitehead, and he said that the history of philosophy is merely a series of footnotes to Plato. That's a pretty complimentary thing to say, meaning that everything that's happened since Plato is just a footnote to Plato, is just a rehashing of Plato, is a rethinking of it, maybe going deeper into what he did. But Plato's pretty much covered everything, though. So the history of philosophy is just a series of footnotes to him. That says a lot about, and that's really true. I mean, he really does cover a lot of ground, of course, mainly because he wrote so much, but and obviously he had a good teacher. He's the founder of what's considered to be in the West to be the first, university, a school for people to go to after they're done with their schooling, their homeschooling with these sophists that they had. The school is called the Academy, and it was in Athens, and it was actually a place. It was like we have school today. The teachers show up here, you show up here, and we have school. That was unusual for back then. That was a kind of a new idea, that to have a location people came to for to learn. The Academy was, like with the sophistic teaching, was just for young men. But they only have one degree at the Academy. Guess what? Just very, very focused kind of education, right? What philosopher did they study? Socrates, yeah. Oh. Socrates, yeah. He's the one they studied. Who wrote all the books for the class? Plato. It's not a bad gig he's got going on, Jed, here. He's got it all. It's like a turnkey deal. It's like, yeah, come to school here, pay tuition. Oh, and you got to buy these books also. And I wrote them. Right. So get on board. Okay, or move over. Find someone else's copy of this. It's a little bit of a, might even call this intellectual inbreeding of some sort, right? But no, not really. But Plato's, yeah, he's the guy. He wrote the books. You got a first-hand source for these things that he's teaching. Of course, he would have known these things inside and out. But it's a little bit it's a little bit of a, that he has so much control over the whole thing. It I just thought, we have a Oral Roberts University here in Tulsa, and the late Oral Roberts, so I'm not speaking ill of the dead, but I'm just going to say what the truth is, but the late Oral Roberts, the one who founded the university, you know what I'm talking about? 81st and Lewis out there? Okay. All right. When he was living, he had a doctorate. Sometimes they will call him Dr. Oral Roberts when they would talk about him or to him. But do you know where his doctorate was from, though? From ORU, yeah. Yeah. So I've always would like to have seen that, like, framed diploma that would say, Oral Roberts University bestows upon Oral Roberts, doctorate of ministry or whatever. And guess who the president of the university was at the time? Yeah, so he would have signed it also, right? That would be a real, yeah. You can all start a university and get a PhD if you want to, or a doctorate of some sort. Yeah, I don't know. It's not like that, but okay. Again, it's kind of hard to sometimes to parse out, where Plato begins and ends, and where Socrates begins and ends, because of what he said. But this has all been looked at for a couple thousand years now, so they pretty much worked that out. In a book that you probably will have to read in college, maybe if not in philosophy, maybe even in some other class, he wrote a book called The Republic. And we'll talk more about this imaginary place called the Republic. But the Republic is a discussion about justice. And they have a talk about justice in the first chapter of the book. That just sounds like a regular Socratic dialogue. And they meet near the port of Athens, which is still Athens, I guess, basically, but on the water. And they meet there, several people. There's a couple of sophists present also. We talked about one of the guys present. Maybe you remember this wonderful name, Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus is there, and some of his Socrates disciples. And Socrates really is the main speaker, although Plato, lets himself speak in the dialogue in this book too. But and what is justice? Do you remember what Thrasymachus said, what justice is? Very cynical kind of idea. I talked to A class about that, or just B, or B, not A? He said justice is whatever's in the interest of the stronger party. Did we talk about that? Everyone's saying that. Yes, you're saying yes. Okay. All right. Whatever's in the interest of the stronger party, that's what justice is. That may be true, like in a practical sense, that may be true. But it doesn't, what Socrates wants. He wants to know what makes all things just, and what makes all things that are unjust. He doesn't want examples. Oh, maybe the system's gotten corrupted. That's a whole other topic. But he wants to know in general, what's the essence of justice? Thrasymachus, may be right. I mean, maybe if you have enough money, or if you have enough influence, or you have enough political authority, or you're connected with people, maybe the justice system kind of bends your way. Possible. We've seen it happen before with people who are extremely wealthy or extremely well known, or they seem to get a little bit lighter sentences. You don't have a whole lot of politicians and who else? Actors and spending like 20 years in prison for things. Do you ever see that very often? Right? I mean, people might go to jail. Even the Watergate people, the people that were involved in Watergate with President Nixon, they didn't spend all that much time in jail. Not like considering what they did, undermining democracy and all that. Yeah, it really wasn't that harsh of a sentence in the prison they went to. Yeah, so maybe Thrasymachus has got it right. But that's not what he's looking for. But anyway, that's how it starts out. Thrasymachus gets mad about this, though. They kind of make fun of him for his answer. And he leaves, like he decides that I'll just take my dolls and go home. So he leaves, and then they stick around, and they decide to, just verbally there, to build, in their imaginations, a republic. what for them would be kind of a utopian republic. And like I said, we'll say more about it. But they talk about everything. I mean, every aspect of society they get to somehow: education, marriage, ownership of things, money, training, what different kinds of people, what kind of jobs we have to be people do, right down to like details like how people will dress. I tell you what, for people who live in the cradle of democracy and who cherish or appear to cherish democracy, their utopia is no democracy. It's not at all a democracy. It's always a bit of a riddle for scholars who look at this, because they are, well, maybe you saw in the video yesterday, Socrates does have some expressed problems with democracy, or about just because the majority says something is the right thing to do doesn't make it right. That's true sometimes, right? Like sometimes the majority expresses their opinion. We go that way because the majority wants that, but then it's not the right thing. It's not the best thing we could have done. Yeah? So just because people vote that way or, cast a ballot that way doesn't necessarily make it right. It's just their best judgment at the time. We have to hope that they put some thought into it. But anyway, so Socrates is critical of democracy there, but also sometimes very praising of democracy at the same time. The guy in the video didn't talk much about the good parts he had to say about democracy. But okay, well, in this book, The Republic, as they're talking about education, in fact, Plato tells this story. I say Plato, it is Plato, but if you read it, it would look like Socrates said this. It's written like a play, like the first book we read, Euthyphro. It's like that. So, but Socrates is saying it, but really it's Plato who wrote it and letting Socrates take his idea. All right. And the story you may have heard before is the allegory of the cave. Anyone heard this before? Allegory of the cave. One person's nodding yes, one no. So only two of you know if you've heard of it. Allegory of the cave. Now, I'm going to draw a picture on the board here. And I just have one request, and that is that when you come to that point of amazement at how well I can draw, please don't rush down to Mrs. Sartain and tell her, oh my gosh, because I don't want her like to fear for her job, or, that I'm better than, because I am, but not that I'm better than she is, or, So please don't do that, okay? Just between us, right? So what I'm going to draw is like if you could like open up the earth and look into this cave, like from the side. What do you call it? Like a cutaway view of the cave, okay? So here we go. Prepare yourselves. By the way, I'm doing this with a marker. This is not like a real, artistic utensil here. Tell you what. All right. All right. Again, please, now hold your applause, please. Where's my, I'll get that going later. Have an applause meter and everything. Okay, so this is the story that he tells. That there are 3 prisoners in the bottom of the cave, and they're shackled in such a way that the people are literally going to touch it. They're shackled in such a way that they can't see each other, they can't look behind them. All they can see is what's in front of them. I'm going to extend this wall out a little bit. All right. And all they can see is this dark back wall of this cave here. But their heads are kind of stuck this way. They're shackled like that with their head. All they can do is look forward. And all they can see is this wall, back wall of the cave. But they see things on the wall. They see shadows on the wall. And they see shadows of like shadow plays. They see people carrying like works of art, like vases and statues and things like that. Some of these shadow plays evoke some kind of emotion from them. Maybe they laugh, maybe they cry, maybe they get excited about something. This is all that they know is this world of shadows that they live down here. And all that they have ever experienced is this world of shadows, and shadows that we know, of course, are being somehow cast on this wall, but they don't know that though. They think that's it. They think that's it. That's life. That's reality. It's just the world that we see, that they see on the back of this dark cave wall. One of the prisoners one day somehow becomes unshackled, and don't ask me about muscle atrophy or about how they got fed or anything like that, but let's just go with it, all right? He stands up, and he turns around. Let's make it this lucky guy here. He turns around and he sees that up here, there's like kind of a wall, and that there are other people up here that are like performing these plays and that are carrying these works of art and things that are created that they can show. And behind them is this, let me go for a little bit of color here. Is this, is this huge fire burning, clearly indicated by this here, all right? Is this fire, and he puts it together pretty quickly. He's like, well, those people are doing the same thing that I've been seeing in a different form on the back of the wall here. These must be connected somehow. Then he looks at the flame here, this fire, and it hurts his eyes, like it's painful at first. It takes him a while to adjust. It doesn't blind him, but he never has looked directly at light before. And as his eyes begin to adjust, he figures out that, this is somehow this light coming from here is casting these shadows from these people here. And that's what I've been seeing my whole life, is just this world of shadows. But there's actually something behind those shadows, something that's making those shadows. This was not reality. This was being kind of projected for me onto this wall. Sometimes brought on the weekend, during the what do you call it, the quarantine. You know what this was right here for me? Flat screen TV. I'm just sitting there in my chair, just staring at the back of my own cave wall. Images get projected on there, sometimes exciting, sometimes sad, sometimes funny, sometimes informative. Then I order some food. I have to get up for a minute to get the food. I can't tell where those images are coming from. They're just there on my TV. Yeah. That's my cave, bro. We all have caves, brothers and sisters, let me tell you. Don't make me preach a sermon today. I'll do it, right? Lucy, you've seen it. Turned into a real Southern Baptist here all of a sudden. Okay. Fire and brimstone. All right. So this is, all right, you get the idea. I'm shackled to that chair. I have a nice, comfortable chair. Shackled. Feel like I'm shackled. All right. So he decides to make this little trek up here. It's like, he's going to walk right past it. You got to walk around the fire, though. And he sees that there's the cave goes on behind the fire goes on. Well, he's in an explorative mood, so he decides to start. Yeah, this freed prisoner. Yeah.
Where are the other people?
They're still shackled down there. Yeah, only he got unshackled. And he begins to make his way out of the cave. Well, this is not easy. He's got to scale up this little wall here, and then he starts getting into this kind of up and down thing, stalactite, stalagmite. I don't forget which one's up and down, but he starts to make his way. Well, he gets right about here or so, and he realizes that there's some light coming into this cave, and it's coming not from behind him, but from in front of him. And he starts to think, well, this light that I discovered down here really filled in a lot of blanks for me about what I thought was reality. I'm interested to know what this light's going to bring. So he gets a little more energy and more excited about getting out of here or moving this way. He didn't know about getting out. And it's a difficult ascent out of the cave, but he makes it. And the further he goes, the stronger the light gets, the stronger it gets. So he gets more and more encouraged to get out. So he comes up and down, up and down, up and down. He gets close. Now it's really flooding into the cave, part you can see here. And then he comes out into, up above the cave, outside, and he wants to know what's the source of that light. What was it that brought him, that encouraged him to make this ascent out of the cave? And he looks right at that source, which is the sun. Kids, don't try this at home. Had that eclipse last year, 2 years. Don't look at the sun, kids. They're like, put those glasses on. He didn't know that though. He didn't have a teacher telling him. He looks right at the sun, and it blinds him temporarily. You can imagine. The sun will blind you too, if you stare at it long enough. But for someone who's been living in a cave their whole life, the sun's, pretty powerful. It blinds him. And his eyes hurt. It's painful. And over a little short period of time, his eyesight begins to come back. And he's not going to do that again. He's not going to look at the sun again. That was a big mistake. But he's wandering around out here outside the cave, and he keeps his head down. And he notices that there are shadows on the ground. He sees like a bird fly over. He sees shadows of trees and maybe bushes and mountains and whatever else is outside in the world. But he's not going to look up any. He's just looking straight down. And he just sees these shadows being cast and moving around. Then he gets a little more brave, and he starts to look up, and he looks at these actual things, the trees and the mountains, and he looks in the sky, but careful to look at the sun. He sees, oh, those are birds flying over. So just like down in the cave, this fire that cast this light, that cast the shadows in the back of the cave, that light source that blinded me is casting shadows down here that I'm seeing outside the cave. But now I see the things that are casting the shadows. I see the trees and birds and all that are casting the shadows. And after a while, for short periods of time, he's able to actually, take a look at the sun. And he realizes that it's the sun that, in fact, illuminates things in the real world. He thought this was the real world, and he found out it wasn't. He's pulled by the sunlight, encouraged by it, out of the cave. It's a lot to handle at first, blinds him. And then he realizes there's a whole world outside the cave that he never has experienced before. The story goes, they've discussed this for a while. It has to do with education, obviously, and in part that although it's applied in all kinds of different cases or situations. But at the same time, as they're talking about this in the book, The Republic, they say that this guy who's been liberated, let's say, and has been illuminated and liberated outside the cave would maybe likely feel some obligation to his former prisoner friends down here to go back down into the cave and tell the other prisoners, hey, let me unshackle you. This is not the real world. The real world's outside. And I can show you how to get there. And it's a really great world. It's not like dark and shadowy like this. And they speculate that if he unshackled them, that other two prisoners might try to kill him for kind of disturbing their very comfortable world of shadows. They're okay where they are right now. They're just fine. Don't disrupt things any. This is a reference, though. This is Socrates speaking, and as you read it in the Republic, you know that it's a reference by Plato to Socrates, to his own death. Here's Socrates, a man who's trying to illuminate people and make them realize what they know or what they don't know, and then they want to kill him. The Republic's written after Socrates' death, by the way, obviously. You couldn't be prophetic about something like that, I don't think. Okay, so this is going to sound kind of detached from where we go from here, but it's not. In fact, I'm kind of like, I'll give you this, and we're going to back off of this, and we're going to come back to it. So, but we're going to work our way towards it, and we'll see how it's connected back to this allegory of the cave. Does this remind anybody of anything you think about in pop culture and thinking and just in movies, literature, anything like that? Sound familiar at all? You seen the movie The Truman Show before? You seen the movie The Truman Show? Jim Carrey? Truman Show? I saw it. Yeah, they create kind of bubbled world for this guy, and people are watching him. You know, there's right like before there's reality shows. Anything else like that? Remind you of? I think about the movie The Matrix. Seen The Matrix, the first one? Okay. In The Matrix, right? They've got people who are prisoners, right? They're basically they don't know it. They think they're living a whole life, right? They think they're living a real life, but they're actually just plugged into the system, right? They're just plugged into this big computer construct. And there's a lot of line. There's a lot of line. Well, anyway, I don't have to speculate. The brothers who wrote the script and directed it, they've said they've taken it all from this story right here. They're taking it from Plato. So you can do a lot of fun things with this. That'd be a great senior thesis topic. There's actually some books written about it, about the Matrix. If you like the movie The Matrix, and Plato's allegory of the cave and other parts of Platonic ideas we'll talk about. All right, that's just another idea. I don't have a list, like I always say, I just kind of throw them out as they come to me or as I think about past senior theses or new ideas. It's always nice to have new ideas. Man, how many papers can I read on cohabitation, before marriage, or on abortion, or on divorce, effects of children, on children of divorce, all that. That's hard to read some of this. Again, they're all good topics, but a lot of kids written about it. Okay, let's go over the book, and I just kind of highlighted this. I'm not saying read only these sections. I'm saying read everything, but this is where I would put my focus if I were you. So it's chapter 4 and 5. And these 4 things that show up on, I think it's the same page numbers in your book, but it's the first page of chapter 4. Monism, dualism, pluralism, and nihilism, or some people say nihilism, but okay. So those are those things. And then it goes through and explains. I don't need you to know every philosopher's thought about these 4 things, just what are those 4 things? We already know what monism is. Dualism, pluralism, nihilism. Does anyone have the book with them? Has the other one, the green copy? Do you have that? Yeah, what page is that on in your book? 116? Okay. So it's on 113 if you're in the reddish book. So it's a little bit off. All right. That's going to be I don't see I have a copy of the... Not handy. Okay, those 4 things. And you see, like on the next page, there's a section on dualism. Yeah, and if you keep going, there's a section on monism. And okay, so those 4 things would be good. The next thing that and I shared an article with you about this just before class started. This is on page. It's 129, but if you can tell me somebody else, it's called the mind-brain identity theory. The mind-brain identity theory. It's on 129 in the red book, 132 in the green book, if you're writing this down. And I'm going to sum this up, and you can read the article that I sent to you. It's pretty interesting, though, but it has to do with, how much of what we experience of ourself is really just a result, really a very reducible, reductionist result of our chemical and electrical things going on in our body or in our mind. The article that I sent you is it's called The Science of Love. Science of Love. Now, talking about the science of love doesn't sound that romantic, really, because we like to think about little cupids, hitting with arrows or sprinkling pixie dust on you when you meet the right person or something. I don't know what your idea is. Some kind of fairy tale. But the science of what happens when you fall, what happens like neurologically, what happens chemically inside your body whenever you fall in love. And it's kind of interesting because there's part of the article that talks about that this, I think it's the University of London, has this, all these people who are active cocaine users, and another group of people who have claimed they've recently fallen in love. So they're still like in that, giddy stage of love. And they do brain scans on these people. And it's remarkable like how similar the brain scans are of the cocaine users and the people who've fallen in love. Yeah, all the same chemicals get released. Cocaine, sorry, I don't mean to encourage this, but cocaine apparently releases more of these chemicals than love does. But love's a powerful natural thing, yeah? Natural high. And then anyway, it goes on to talk about how, a lot of people have all kinds of romantic ideas about love, but this is really what happens, and that you get, serotonin and norepinephrine, and for women, there's a release of oxytocin at some point then, that really is kind of a bonding chemical that bonds them into that man or that other person. And so anyway, it's really fascinating. But the bottom line is that, let's say your heart gets broken, this person breaks up with you, yeah? And the feelings that you feel, yes, the feelings you feel in that breakup are nothing more than withdrawal. And that other person is the only person who is your supplier. They're the only ones that have the drug that gives you what you want. So this is why people stalk their exes, they call, they're texting, please see me, please meet me, because they're the only ones that can give them that what do you call it, that fix, yeah? Think about that. Maybe none of you had your heart broken. Maybe all of you are just heartbreakers. I don't know. But someday you'll have your heart broken, and you'll say, oh yeah, I'm just going through withdrawal. That's all I'm doing, right? And this guy or this other woman or whatever they're my supplier, and I just got to cut myself loose of them, Yeah, crazy. People like when they get high on cocaine, they do the same thing that when they fall in love. They don't eat very much, they don't think about eating that much. Their mind, all the brains going overdrive. It's pretty interesting. Well, use that as kind of a guideline for reading this section here about, and it's not very long, about this mind-brain identity theory. Okay, then I'm going to skip ahead here several pages. Yeah, I didn't know it was that much, but okay. Oh, well, he just talks about pluralism. Okay. Yeah, I think that's, let me see if I forgot anything. I thought I had something else highlighted here. The whole chapter, though, is talking about those four things, the monism, pluralism, dualism, nihilism. And so even on to page 144 in the Red Book, there's the section on pluralism. So you'll find everything in there. All right, then let's look at chapter 5, philosophy of religion. So again, if you'll follow me, you can tell me, Luke 157 in the Red Book, about theism and the ontological argument. What page is that in the Green Book? Theism, it's just a couple pages into the chapter. 161 in the Green Book. Okay, I think we have a pretty good idea probably what theism is. We talked about deism, that's different, but theism. The ontological argument is something I'm sure you talked about in theology at some point before you got to this class. Most famously made by two people, by St. Anselm, who's earlier, and then most notably by Thomas Aquinas. Right? These proof by design, proof by movement. Okay, you heard these before? I'm sure Mr. Malarkey or somebody else covered these, right? Okay. I'm going to assume that all of you behind your masks are saying, yes, of course he did. All right. Anselm's on the next page. Anselm is really only has one kind of proof, I guess you could say, about that, but I'd like for you to know it. And then what Aquinas, and here it's the cosmological argument. Luke, there's a picture of Thomas Aquinas holding a Bible in a church. What page is that? In the Green Book. Again? 159. It's 164 in the Red Book. This is what I was just talking about. This is cosmological argument from Thomas Aquinas. But what are these things? These ontological or cosmological arguments are proofs that God exists. So they're logical, kind of very rational proofs that there is a God. So you kind of take you through the steps of, so we know this and we know this, and this is also true. So therefore, we can make some conclusions about it. Many of those arguments, I'm looking on 168 in the Red Book, is based on, like I said the other day, Aquinas bases his ideas off of Aristotle. Augustine, our friend Augustine, based his ideas off Plato, but Thomas Aquinas off Aristotle. And on page 168, there's a thing called the teleological argument, and a lot of Aquinas's ontological or cosmological arguments are based off this teleological argument. Teleos meaning a goal, an end result. Like the acorn's end result is become an oak tree. Is that right? Oak tree, right? Okay. All right. Well, everything has like a teleological end to it. That might be redundant to say that, but all right. So you'll see, and once you put that together, you'll see the correlation there and the connection that he had with Aristotle. I'm going to skip ahead. On 178, which is again a few pages ahead, there's a short section on Karl Marx, Religion as Opium. I think this line is misquoted sometimes from Marx, or that the religion's the opiate of the masses or something like that. I think it's maybe taken out of context a bit, or maybe not even, I can't remember right now. But anyway, it's still well known that way, but religion is opium. Just a short section, take a look at that. And then the last part. And then there's a section on 182 in the, what was that, by the way, Luke, on? Okay, 183 in the Green Book. And the next one is one page over, God and the Theory of Evolution. Just kind of this impact of evolution and, what it's meant to people's thinking about God and about the world. And that's 182. Where is that in your book? God and the Theory of Evolution. No? It's about, after the Marx and religion, there's Sigmund Freud has a section. And then the next section is God and Theory of Evolution. Do you see that? Huh. I wonder if this guy did add something to his book when he got the new edition. See a picture of a dragon or something there fighting this guy, or a guy fighting a dragon? All right, then let's forget about that section, because apparently there's some things added. Do you have a section, though? Let's skip ahead several pages, though, towards the end of this about religious mysticism, the 198 in the Red Book. I'm sure that's in there. What page is it there? Okay, 193 and 198. So forget about evolution. Let's go to religious mysticism. Know what a religious mystic is, what a Christian mystic is. Be able to name one. They mention several in the book, and you may, or a handful, and you may think of others that they don't have to be biblical. It could be just Christian mystics, and what does it mean to be a mystic? And tell me about one. Yeah, it would be a good quiz question, if I was thinking about the quiz. And the last part is on 206 in the Red Book. It's religious existentialism, which is about Soren Kierkegaard, who we'll hopefully talk about more later. But what page is that in your book? It's 206 in the Red Book, 201 in the Green Book. Kierkegaard, and it's not a, just basically know. It'll tell you a little bit existentialism, what that is in general, and then how Kierkegaard kind of fits in. Because in a lot of ways, Christianity and existentialism really don't mix very well. But Kierkegaard is one who brings it together. Even before there was a word existentialism, he was he had found a way to make this kind of idea fit with Christianity. He's a really interesting character. So, okay, that's it then. All right, those are the parts I want you to focus on. All right, that gives you the weekend and Monday, kind of prepare. Hopefully, you've been reading already. Okay, and what day did I say our test is? Thursday, right?
The quiz?
The test is Tuesday. Oh, the quiz is Tuesday.
Okay.
I think the test is on Thursday.
Okay.
That's scheduled. And 4 and 5 on Tuesday from the book. But guys, you know, here on the test Thursday, the test is over the lecture, and it's over the other reading, the Plato book. Yeah, the three stories that we read. Sorry, so there'll be questions about both things. But the test is not about this though. The quiz, this is only about the quiz. Okay, let me say it one more time, everybody. Please pay attention. The quiz on Tuesday is only over chapters 4 and 5. Then forget about this book for the test. Let's just turn it over. All right, I'm going to cover it up. The test is over the lecture and over the other book. I don't have a copy of it here. Oh, here I do. This book by Plato, Trial and Death of Socrates. This is the parts that we read. Right? Euthyphro, Apology, Crito, those three. So the questions about the lecture and about this. I like these shirts, by the way. I really do. These homecoming shirts. People really went different this time. It's really it's like a unique. It's not the typical like homecoming shirt or a Castro Hall shirt. All right, sorry, I just lost. I have ADD, so gotta forgive me. All right. We'll enjoy homecoming weekend and enjoy the weekend in general. It should be nice.